Lloyd Vance's Insider Football is back on 1029 The Game, the Broad Street Stout Network, and 1029 the Coastal Network as well. Here, Lloyd Vance, we had some technical difficulties, but we're going to push through. And Kevin was not able to join us this evening. He's under the weather, so I had my number one guy off the bench. You know, we're all Phillies fans right now. Javon Alford, how you doing, man? Good to have
I'm
you
doing,
back on.
yeah, man. I'm doing good. Glad to be going. I think the last time we was on, it was what, preseason or before. I think it was definitely before everything got started. So glad to be on talking some NFL. It's a lot that's been happening this past week in the league. So definitely looking forward to talking about it.
Yeah, it did. You know, it's a crazy season. I had you on with Nate, and it was more preseason, and
Yep.
we're finally into the games. You know, we're 4 games in, and Nate and I played a couple weeks ago, contender pretender, and maybe we'll do the same. You know, I don't even think we need to do that anymore because I think they're almost sorting themselves out as we're moving along in this season. So the biggest thing is I want to talk about the teams that have kind of surprises. You know, there's only 2 teams left that are undefeated going into tonight, obviously. And you have the Minnesota Vikings 4-0, and you have the Kansas City Chiefs 4-0. Seattle, we'll see what happens to them. But talk to me a little bit about the Vikings and the surprise that they are, and Darnold. And is this for real?
I didn't want to believe it at first that they were for real, but looking at how they were able to beat San Fran, just completely throttle Houston the week after they took on San Francisco, and then just squeaking by the Packers, even though they dominated them for most of that game. For the most part, they're for real, and I think a lot of it, like you said, it starts with Sam Darnold. I mean, Kevin O'Connell. I mean, he's showing his wits as an offensive guy, taking a guy in Darnold who I think a lot of people, for the most part, written him off and just like, all right, he kind of is a bust at this point in his career. The stint in Carolina, it was okay. It wasn't great. He goes to San Fran where he gets to sit, learn that Shanahan offense, kind of almost like what Baker Mayfield did with the Rams, right? Kind of reinvent themselves, get them, back to where they need to be. And he comes in to Minnesota, obviously with the goal of starting before JJ McCarthy gets hurt. And then JJ McCarthy gets hurt and kind of solidifies him as to be the starter. And he's just taking off and just running with it. I think he leads the league in touchdowns this season with 11. He's just been on fire, just executing, getting the ball to the playmakers. Justin Jefferson, Addison, he's back now in the fold. They have a good running game with Aaron Jones, who I think a lot of people wondered how much left did he have in the tank and if he was going to be able to show what he was in Green Bay with Minnesota, and he's been as advertised. And on the other end, you got a good defensive minded, coach in Brian Flores who has that unit clicking on all cylinders. They lose Daniil Hunter, but then they replace him with a Jonathan Grenard, right? So you're not even losing production. If anything, you're getting younger, right? You're getting a younger version of Daniil Hunter. So in all 3 phases, they're just playing excellent football right now. And they're for real. I think a lot of people wanted to see, okay, you took down the Niners, you took down the Texans. Now, what were you going to do in your first divisional test? And outside of the defense giving up, some points after getting that 28-7 lead, that offense still was able to do what they were able to do at the end, to kind of salt the game away. So I think you got to be impressed with what Darnold and O'Connell have been able to do with them so far.
Yeah, definitely. And the thing is with the Vikings, and we'll jump right to their game. You know, they go to Green Bay and prove that they're the real deal. They win 31-29, as you said. Green Bay, at first, they kind of came out the chute kind of slow. And Love, who was making his first start since the Eagles game, got him 22 points in the fourth quarter for the Packers. But when you look at his numbers, 32 of 54, 389, he had 3 picks. He did have 4 touchdown passes. It just took them a while to get going. And Darnold's just efficient. 20 of 28, 275. He did have his first pick of the season, so he's 3 TDs, 1 pick. And the guy you really got to watch it with Minnesota is Aaron Jones.
Mm.
22 rushes, 93 yards, and he's explosive. Everybody thought he was done, but I thought he played really well last year in the playoffs. And it just showed you he still had something left. and Minnesota has really found ways to use them. You're right. O'Connell's done a great job, and yeah, they didn't have their best game, but what Flores has done with this defense, talk to me about that. And do you think, I asked Kevin last week, and I'll ask you the same thing. Do you think Flores could get an opportunity to be a head coach again? I know he's suing the NFL, and there's that litigation out there, but do you think if the Vikings continue to win in ways that he can get one?
I think you have to, because I think he's going to have such a good just record. Obviously, people remember what happened in Miami as a head coach, what he's been able to do as a DC these last couple of years in Minnesota. That's something to take notice of, right? He's making plays and putting guys in positions to succeed, right? Like a Blake Cashman, who had a really good, I think, final season in Houston, and now have kind of continued to develop and become a playmaker. He has the secondary pieces again, not guys that are household like top tier cornerback names. The me and you, we know him, right? The Byron Murphys, of the world. Like, he's able to put these guys in position, and they're able to succeed, and they're getting turnovers, they're getting pressure. Like, those are the things that we know a Brian Flores defense can do, and he's doing it. And I think, if this team can get, if they win the division, I think that's obviously going to put them on the map, right? If they can take that division away from Detroit and even make, win a playoff game, I think Flores is definitely going to be on that coach and watch list, because you can't dispute, what he's done, as a coordinator, and if the Vikings continue to have success. So definitely I think he's going to be a name to watch, him, Belichick, Vrabel, like all those guys, I think are going to be names to watch in the offseason.
Yeah, and there's changes coming because some of these coaches already, you got to put them on the hot seat. And we're talking here on Lloyd Vance Insider Football on 102.9 The Game, the Coastal Sports Network. I'm joined by Javon Alford, recapping week 4, and we're going to start talking about coaches on the hot seat. And we'll talk about the games their team played, but you guys say, uh-oh. And I'll start with a big part of our listening audience. The Philadelphia Eagles went to Tampa Bay and got their doors blown off, 33-16 by the Bucs in Tampa. It was, to me, it wasn't even close, and the Eagles have had notoriously slow starts all season. Tampa Bay was on them right away. It was 14-0 out of the first quarter. And I'm starting to question. We'll start with Fangio in a defense where they've missed 16 tackles in the game. And, it rolls up to the head coach. So Sirianni, to me, yes, he was 34-17 coming into the season, but the Eagles lost 6 or 7 end of last season. Right there in Tampa, played terrible in the playoffs. And this team seems to be in disarray, particularly our quarterback, Jalen Hurts. So talk about the Eagles and the Bucs game, and do you think Sirianni's on a hot seat?
I definitely think Sirianni is on the hot seat, because it seems like the same issues that have kind of plagued this team at the end of last season, where they lost 7 out of 8, including that playoff game to the Bucs, still haven't figured themselves out. And granted, we know the Eagles, for the most part, they don't fire coaches mid-season, right? Obviously, they let Reed finish out, his, tenure, and then I think Chip Kelly was the last few weeks in December where they moved on from him. So they don't let go of guys mid-season, but Jeffrey Lurie might think otherwise if things don't turn around soon, because just the way that they're not playing great football. They're not playing cohesive four-quarter football on both sides. Like you said, they started out slow. I think at one point in the game, I think they were getting outgained 255-0. Like, that's just incredible. Like, that's the type of things that you don't see in an NFL game. You might see it in a college football game on college football Sundays, Saturdays, with a lower D1 program going against a upper tier week 1, week 0 type of game, but not, in an NFL game. So I think there's a lot of concern there with this team. I think the fan base feels it, and I'm pretty sure the front office, realizes that. And you mentioned the defense. I think that's probably been one of the biggest concerns, because Vic Fangio was supposed to come in here and kind of turn this operation around, and everybody was praising, like, man, see what Vic Fangio, did with Miami, and they had him during the Super Bowl run, and Jonathan Gannon, what he did, ruined the opportunity to bring Fangio in, and now you have him here, and this team is not getting pressure. I think they're ranked in the bottom half of the league in pressures and getting sacks, and I think I saw a stat from Doug Farrar that said the Eagles have had no cornerbacks in press on 88% of their snaps this season, which is the highest in the
Wow.
NFL. Like, that's incredible. So, and I think we saw that in yesterday's game, right? When you don't get pressure and you're having your corners standing 5 to 7 yards off the line of scrimmage, you're basically giving away free yards to guys like Chris Godwin and Mike Evans, who are professional wide receivers. Like, they do it better than no ever. And Baker Mayfield, took advantage of it. So the fact that they're not getting pressure, Bryce Huff has been non-existent. Nolan Smith not getting pressure, the missed tackling, which is just abhorrent. I think they're up there too. Like you mentioned, 16 missed tackles. You don't do that. So many guys whiffing and arm tackling. It's just bad. And that's not even considering the offensive struggles, but the defensive struggles I think are more apparent because if they look so good in week 3, right? The pressure came, like they got sacks in that second half, but the pressure was there. The middle, the Carters, the Davises were able to get pressure, and then they turn around against Tampa and they were off. Slay was getting beat in coverage. Chauncey Gardner-Johnson giving up another touchdown in the red zone. It was just not sound football and by
Yeah.
nobody.
And when you look at this team, you got to place it at the head coach. Yes, he did not have his two number one receivers, Devontae Smith and AJ Brown, have not played, and they need to get them healthy. But the thing is, I've just seen regression with Jalen Hurts, in particularly the end of last season and into this one. And we all thought, okay, maybe it was the aberration the way he played at the end of the season. But 18 of 30, 158. He did have a TD, no interceptions, but he only rushed the ball 8 times for 20 yards. He was sacked 6 times in the game. He had 2 fumbles, one of which they did recover, but they let it go. So that gives him 8 turnovers in 4 games. So that's 4 INTs, 4 lost fumbles he has. And he has 27 turnovers since 2023. So this is a big problem. I have to also lay this at the feet as well at Howie Roseman, because they've had a lot of injuries, and they have,
Mm-hmm.
they seem to have good frontline guys, but some of these backups we've talked about before, their lack of development. And, do you think the Eagles can overcome this? Obviously, it's going to be 2 weeks of talking about this here in Philadelphia where we are, and, they're on their bye. They have to get this fixed, because when they started talking to Jalen Hurts, they were like, are you and Sirianni on the same page? It's like, yeah, we have our ups and downs. So, not a ringing endorsement
Yeah.
from Hurts in terms of talking about his head coach. And you just wonder how much longer this is going to stay together. And did we overestimate this team? Because on paper, they look like a contender going into this season.
Yeah, no, I think, like you said, I think some of it does fall at Howie Roseman because, like you said, the depth, when this team has gotten tested depth wise, they haven't necessarily done well. I mean, Fred Johnson, God bless him, he tried and he just looked just out of place, and the Bucks knew to take advantage of him, and obviously that's where that fumble happens inside the red zone, right? And I think Fran Duffy did a great breakdown of that play, and you could tell it was kind of doomed from the start because Calcaterra, they're running 2 verts down the seam, one on the hash, and they're running cover 2, and Calcaterra gets knocked off his route, and just the floodgates open in the protection. So definitely definitely a lot of this fall at Roseman. I mean, it's unfortunate, obviously, for Lane Johnson to get the concussion because, as we've seen now for years, for some reason the Eagles just don't play well when Lane Johnson's not in the starter lineup. Like, the numbers are
Right.
pretty drastic. I think what's more incredible, and I think it's damning on the head coaches, with the coaches and offensive coordinator Kellen Moore, is that when you don't have AJ Brown, when you don't have Devontae Smith, and you're down to Paris Campbell, Jahan Dotson, Johnny Wilson, John Ross, Goddard, and the rest of the tight ends, why is there not a concerted effort to run the football, right? To put your quarterback in manageable situations to execute, which they did not do. You paid Saquon Barkley to be that bell cow, and you saw when they opened up the second half, you run that inside zone, the blocks open up. He takes it, 50 plus yards, and then after that, they don't go back to the running game. So I think they're still trying to figure out, and this is also what happens when you have a lot of change at coordinator. Like, every year there's been change.
Right.
Steichen one year, Brian Johnson another year. Now it's Kellen Moore. Now your quarterback is like, I have to focus and lock in and try to hone in on how to dissect this offense without the one of the best offensive tackles in the league, without the best wide receiver duo. And he's trying to, I think he's pressing. He's trying to press and he's trying to make something
Yeah.
that's not there, and the turnovers are happening. And I think we all know that he probably expects better from himself, right? So it's a lot, and yeah, you hope that 2 weeks they get healthy and that they get everybody back, because you cannot lose to the Cleveland Browns coming out of the break. If you lose to the Cleveland Browns, who have been probably one of the worst teams in the AFC, that kind of can't get out their own way on their own accord, as we saw against the Raiders, then it's not going to be looking good for Nick Sirianni.
Yeah, and he's on a 1-year deal, so he's a lame duck coach. Nobody talks about that, and the funny thing is, he's still very snarky.
Yes.
He still thinks he's 2022, and he won the Super Bowl. Well, I tell him you didn't win it, and now your job is on the line. So, but in talking about this game, we do got to talk about the other side of it. And the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, look, I counted them out. I thought automatically maybe it was the Saints' year in this division, the Falcons' year, and we saw both those teams play. We'll talk about that in a second. But Tampa Bay and Baker Mayfield, he's playing at MVP level. 30 of 47, 347, 2 TDs, only sacked twice, getting production out of Irving now at the running back position. And the receivers, Mike Evans and Godwin, are having career years. So talk real quick about the Bucs, then we'll move on to other games.
Yeah, no, the Bucks. I mean, after getting just absolutely destroyed by the Denver Broncos, they made sure that they were not going to have a repeat. Have a repeat of that. And shout out to Baker Mayfield. Shout out to their offensive coordinator Liam Cohen, the new OC there that kind of took over for Dave Canales. They just went in and just said, "Hey, we're taking what the defense is giving us, and we're just going to go right at them." Like anything that they dialed up, it was working, right? Everybody was wondering, all right, what about the Tampa running game? What are they going to do? Is Rashad Wright losing targets and touches to Bucky Irvin? Well, both of them got what they got off on this Eagles defense. So Baker did excellent job, and it's good to see, right? I think a lot of people had a lot of expectations for Baker coming out, obviously at the top pick, and things didn't necessarily work out in Cleveland. And he, again, didn't Carolina had some solid play, but it just didn't work there. And then obviously he goes to the Sean McVay school in LA, gets refixed, and gets to Canales last year, and he just continuing to get better and better. And I think you're seeing that. Obviously, the Denver game wasn't his greatest performance, but hey, he's put up 2 monster performances against 2 NFC East teams, and then obviously against Detroit. I know that was a huge win for them, given how the season ended last year for him. So I think if you're the Bucks, and I think if you're Todd Bowles, you got to be happy with the way this offense is looking, because if everything continues to click, if everybody stays healthy, if Mayfield continues to get the ball to these playmakers and the offensive line keeps them protected, they should come back and win that division again. I know, granted, the Saints have looked better, obviously taking a couple L's, the last couple weeks, but between them, the Saints, and the Falcons, you got to think that this Bucks team is the front runner, to win that division.
The Falcons on Thursday Night Football. So can you hear me? I can see everything. Yeah, and the Bucks are coming up in Week 5. They go to the Falcons, so it's a huge game, divisional game for the two of them, and I think if the Bucks can win that one on Thursday night, then they have the Saints right after that. Big test against Baltimore Monday Night Football, and then Atlanta again. So they got some big games coming up, and we're going to see if they're able to keep this train rolling. But right now, yeah, I would say the Bucks are in the driver's seat in that division, and a lot of football to be played. At 3-1, you're happy, and here on Lloyd Vance Insider Football, I definitely got to talk about. We talk about surprises and teams rolling, and you know, it's just incredible what's going on. Me and Rich talked about it, and this team, the Washington Commanders, I did not see this coming. I thought they were going to be sneaking maybe to the 7th spot, be a team that could challenge for a wild card, but they may win the NFC East the way Dallas is playing, where the Eagles are playing. And Jaden Daniels, he's just playing at a credible rate. I watched some of him at LSU, and I thought, okay, maybe it was college football, and you know how it is. All those 5-star guys around him, but he's the real. Jaden Daniels, 26 of 30, 233, had a TD. Again, he was running the ball effectively. Washington just crushed the Arizona Cardinals, 42-14 in Arizona. So just talk a little bit about Daniels, what he's doing, and can Washington Commanders keep this going?
Can they keep it going? Potentially. But I will say the way that offense has been clicking without a quality wide receiver too, I think it's impressive, right? Because I think a lot of people were shocked when they trade Jahan Dotson. You heard the little whispers of like, hey, they're not sold him as wide receiver too. And you're thinking, what do you mean you have a rookie quarterback? You need to give him as much weapons
The
as
Eagles
possible.
found out real well.
Right, exactly. So it looks like the Commanders might have been on to something, but credit to Cliff Kingsbury. I think we're finally realizing that Cliff Kingsbury, the OC, might be better than Cliff Kingsbury, the head coach, which is just wild to think about. See his offense as play, the way that he's really utilizing Daniels, strength, using them in the run game. Daniels really not making those rookie mistakes, easy throws, letting his, guys do it. Terry McLaurin, Zach Ertz, who's kind of revitalizing himself a little bit under Cliff Kingsbury, them two reunited. So it's been good to see. Obviously, Brian Robinson had a huge game. And if Daniels continues to play this way, I mean, granted, he's going to have his rookie, woes and struggles as more teams get more, game tape and stuff on him and his tendencies. But if you're a Commanders fan, I think you got to be excited because this is a complete 360 degree from what you saw last year with Sam Howell. With Sam Howell. So I think definitely got to be excited about that. Definitely got to be excited about that.
Can you see me?
No.
Can you hear me?
No.
I can't see you anymore.
There we are.
Lloyd will be back as he's having a little bit of a snafu. No big deal, but he'll be back. Lloyd might have to. Lloyd, if you can hear, you might have to refresh again because I know it's kind of tough sometimes to be able to do it on the phone, but hopefully he'll come back in a second. We'll see. But you guys are listening to Lloyd Vance's Insider Football here on Sports Radio 102.9 from the game, part of the Coastal Sports Network, and of course brought to you by Broadtree South. It is 8:41 here on the right coast, being Florida, the eastern side of the world. 6:41 there on the left coast, also known as the West Coast. But by the way, Jordan, have you seen? I know because obviously we're on air right now, but did you happen to see the Detroit, their new helmets, the ones they're sporting out tonight?
No, I haven't seen them yet. I think I saw a picture of them a couple days ago with the it's almost like a blue matte chrome type look with the black. I think that's probably one of the best jersey combinations I've seen in a while. Mm-hmm. And I like that the Lions kind of switched it up because we know they've had black jerseys in the past, but to add that nice hint of blue, that I think what they call it, like Honolulu blue. I think that's what they call it. Add that nice little blue there. It's a nice touch. So I like the Lions they stepping their game up like they are on the field. So you definitely love to see that.
Yeah, I'm liking it. I'm thinking. I said to my wife, "said Man, it'd be like one of those little mini helmets I have on the shelf back there." But yeah, I would love. That's pretty nice. And not saying I know the folks have been like, oh, because I teased this morning saying that I put in my application to the 31 other teams because of the way the Eagles have been playing as of late. So I'm pretty sure people would be like, oh, go figure. He might end up changing things up, but no, it's not. Nothing changes. It remains the same. Matter of fact, I'll take away the. I know Pete loves. Yeah, put my regular backgrounds I usually have on my show here. But no, I'm digging it. And I know Tennessee, not a surprise though. Tennessee was up 6-0. And I don't think as of right now, let me refresh. Last I checked, I know Detroit was driving. But let me see if they've scored at the moment as we wait for Lloyd to come back. I know he's had a little problems this evening. Yep, they're up 7-0. And there he is, back like the Flash. All right.
All right. We won't touch nothing. Sorry. Oh, Lord. Okay. Take two. I feel Angel's not on the screen, but I feel like Rich with all my technical problems.
And it was funny because I was just telling Javon that before we went on air.
But we're going to keep rolling here on Lloyd Vance Inside of Football on 102.9 The Game and the Coast Sports Network. I'm here with Javon Alford. We're going through the games from this week. We were talking about the Washington Commanders and could they keep it going. I know Jane Daniels, I was wondering, I was like, okay, maybe he was at LSU surrounded by all those 5 stars and everything, but he's so accurate now and he's playing so well. Clarn doing his thing. They got Robinson running the football. He had an effective game running football. As you said, Zach Ertz getting involved too. Washington, we have to think they're the real deal. Now, Arizona kind of started slowly. I was surprised they didn't do much in their home effort in that game.
Yeah, that was kind of surprising given what we saw from Arizona the early parts of the week of the season, obviously against Buffalo, the way they performed with that team. And obviously they did not have Trey McBride, one of their best wide receivers for that game. So that definitely hurt because I think a lot of people thought, hey, you got Marvin Harrison, you still got Greg Dortch, you got Michael Wilson, Colin Murray, Connor Benson, like you should be able to put up points against this Commanders defense, which I think has really good, solid veteran pieces at all 3 levels, but they still haven't put it all together yet outside of obviously that game against the Cardinals. So I think a lot of people thought they were going to be able to attack them in the passing game, and it just didn't happen there. But I wouldn't be concerned if I'm a Cardinals fan yet. I think you still got something good there. Now, defensively, giving up 42, I know that's probably not going to make a lot of people happy, especially since your head coach is supposed to be the defensive-minded guy in Jonathan Gannon, and that was not a good look to get shredded up by your former head coach in Kingsbury getting dicing up new head coach in his defense. So it's going to be interesting. But like I said, if you're a Commanders fan, you got to be happy. It's a complete 360 from what they had. And Sam Howell, who put up big numbers, but it also came with a lot of turnovers. And Daniels is doing a good job of playing safe, playing within himself, and that's a credit to the offense. And hey, we'll see what they can do. I think they have the Browns coming up next, which is going to be an interesting test for that young guy and just going up against Jim Schwartz and what he's able to do and scheme up. So it's going to be another test for him. But if he can pass that test, then the sky's the limit for him.
Yeah. And right now you have to say they're moving in the right direction. I do like what that defense is doing with Jonathan Allen and all. They have a lot of first rounders on that defense. So they're trying to get it together. I think just the getting rid of Daniel Snyder has turned this organization around. They're moving in a new direction now. A lot of games we played as we were kind of alluding to, but 3-1. They have the Browns. That's a home game at Baltimore. I can't wait to see that. That's in the Beltway battle. Carolina, Chicago at New York Giants, Steelers at the Eagles. I think that's a huge one on a Thursday night. That's in Week 11. And then Dallas, Tennessee. They have a late bye in Week 14. So a lot of games left to be played for them, but Washington looking good. And Daniel's my rookie of the year pick, and he's sure looking like it. So, kudos to him. We'll see if he's able to keep it going. We're wrapping up Week 4 here on Lloyd Vance's Insider Football on 102.9 The Game, the Coast Sports Network. Looking at everything over the weekend, we talked about Washington. We'll stay in NFC East. Thursday night, this game was kind of, it was like, All right, somebody has to win this one.
Yeah.
But it's funny, Javon. When I look at the Dallas Cowboys, sure enough, they look in disarray. They just don't look right to me, and I feel like they're going to miss the playoffs this year. And then McCarthy, everybody's going to be questioning. We talked about the coaches on hot seat. You got to put him on there firmly. Talk to me about this game. Dallas pulls it out, 20-15. Prescott didn't do much. He did throw 2 TDs in this game, but I just think the Giants are the story because Daniel Jones is just not the answer. And they got to, before they can get better, they're going to have to get rid of him. So talk about both sides of this game.
I mean, I think this game, I mean, if you're a Cowboys fan, you're happy to come out with a win. Granted that they lost, obviously the Baltimore and then the Saints the previous 2 weeks, but you shouldn't be comfortable and confident from what you saw, because if the Giants could just had a red zone offense, the Dallas Cowboys would have been in trouble. And that was the huge ineffectiveness. The Giants offense, couldn't get into the red zone. And that's a microcosm of, just like you said, Daniel Jones obviously is not the answer. Their answer is a quarterback in the draft for them. They don't have they have some skill position players, obviously, Wan'Dale Robinson, Malik Neighbors, who truly looks like he's going to be that next great LSU wide receiver that becomes a very great NFL wide receiver. But Devin Singletary, that running game does not do anything for me. It's not explosive. Tight end doesn't do much. So when you don't have those two things right there, it doesn't scare or do anything in a red zone offense. Hence why you have Greg Joseph knocking in 5 field goals. So, hey, Greg Joseph's your MVP for the Giants, but that doesn't exude confidence for a Giants team that this is a huge season for Brian Daboll and Joe Schoen. Like, both of them are technically on the hot seat based on how everything is kind of played out this offseason. So I think for the Giants, offensively, that's going to be the key for them, because I think defensively they're doing everything that they can, defensively. Is that offense that has to do something, and they kind of neglected making subtle additions at the skill positions. And I think, for the Cowboys, it's the same thing, right? They have the talent at wide receiver and tight end, but they neglected the running back position, and it's killing them every single
They
week.
sure did.
Every
Dowdell,
single week.
11 rushes for 100, 11 rushes, 46 yards.
And
So it just
you
shows you
can't
that
do
they
that.
have no rushing attack, and you're not going to have a chance. And Dallas is going to struggle because now you have Parsons hurt, you have Lawrence got banged up in this
Yep.
game, and their defense is looking. Other than their frontline guys, their defense, their second stringers are not good, and teams are able to move the football on them. Obviously, we were talking about the Giants were able to move the ball, but it was a field goal fest. So, and the Giants' Neighbors, 12 catches, 115. He's showing you what a tremendous play. He's also, him and Jaden Daniels, 2 of the biggest stories in the NFL in terms of rookies, and Dallas. I think McCarthy, they're going to turn the page with him, and the Giants maybe too. When you talk about Joe Schoen, their general manager, and Brian Daboll, they were talking to the NFL all during the off season because they had hard knocks in the offices and they lost Saquon. But the Giants just do not look good. They're bottom dwellers. So I think if the Eagles can get their stuff together, maybe they'll compete with the Commanders. But these 2 teams are not going to be in a division.
Yeah, no, and like you said, for the Cowboys, I think, like you said, them losing Parsons and Lawrence, in addition to already losing Sam Williams in training camp, like you said, that stretches that defensive line depth in that they did not really address. I mean, Carl Lawson will likely probably get called up again off the practice squad, so you're going to look at extended snaps for Carl Lawson. The rookie Marshawn Nealon, who they drafted in the second round, he's going to have to play huge snaps. But outside of those guys, like you said, that depth is going to be tested, and that's not good. Granted, you got the Steelers coming up, which you should be able to get by, but then right after the Steelers, you got the San Francisco 49ers. And I know the Niners have to be excited to see this Dallas team, especially that Dallas defense, knowing there's no Parsons and Lawrence that has to chase around Brock Purdy.
Yeah, and so coming up for Dallas, they're at Pittsburgh. They have Detroit, then they're then they're at
San Fran.
Niners. So you're talking about a tough stretch there for this team. And Prescott's trying to carry it together, but he's paid so much money now. That is going to be a big thing they have to work around this off season. And you're talking about getting people to help out. They got to do better in the draft. So, Dallas is going to be interesting to see how that plays out. You talk about Belichick is out there. You talk about Mike Vrabel's out there. These are the guys who are going to be looking for new jobs, and a lot of these teams are on hot seats. So I definitely agree with you that Dallas, that the schedule and the way everything's looking, especially with Parsons, because I'm not sure how long he's going to be out. He was in a walking boot. Dallas has got some tough work to do. So good win for them, but that was a sigh of relief, you have to say, with that victory. So we're here talking with Javon Alford, talking about Week 4 of the National Football League here on Lloyd Vance's Insider Football on 102.9 The Game on the Coastal Sports Network. Javon, now this team, C.J. Stroud looks like the real deal. They were able to beat Jacksonville 24-20, and we'll talk about the other side in a minute. But good win for Houston. You saw Stroud 27 of 40, 345, no interceptions, 2 TDs. I mean, he's in total control out there, and particularly throwing the ball to Nico Collins. Nico Collins, he's a fantasy football team's dream. He's actually on my team. I'm very excited to have him as my number one. 12 catches, 151, had a TD. But then you look at the other side of this. I think the first coach fired may be the Eagles' former Super Bowl winning head coach, Doug Peterson. This team, Jacksonville, 1-9 in their last 10 games since after starting 2023 at 8-3. So it just shows you this team has not progressed. Trevor Lawrence, 18 of 33, 169. He does not look like a guy that should be like second highest paid quarterback in the NFL. Is Jacksonville in trouble at 0-4? And is their coach, should he be looking at moving Vance?
Yeah, I think both of those should be, because, like you said, Trevor Lawrence this season is only completing 53.3% of his passes. That is just abhorrent. That's the type of percentage I would expect from a guy who was drafted day 3 and you just threw him in the fire because everybody else got hurt in your quarterback room and you just had to throw him out there. Or he's Tim Boyle. I expect those numbers from Tim Boyle, not somebody not somebody like Trevor Lawrence. Trevor Lawrence should be better, but it falls on head coach, it falls on Doug Peterson, it falls on offensive coordinator Press Taylor, and I know Doug got a little hot water based on some of his comments after Sunday's game where he kind of threw the players under the bus in defense of Press Taylor, and we know how Doug was kind of in favor of Press Taylor even with the Eagles and kind of not and being real stubborn, as this is my guy and I'm going to ride with my guy, and that might be his downfall here because even though this team has too much talent on it, they have a good solid quarterback in Trevor Lawrence. You have an outstanding running back in Trevor Etienne, who a lot of people loved coming out of Clemson for what he was able to do as a runner and a receiver. Your wide receiver room, I mean, you have Christian Kirk. Obviously, you don't have Calvin Ridley, but you got Christian Kirk, Brian Thomas, and Gabe Davis. I mean, what more could you ask for?
Right.
You should be able to do a lot of things with this offense. And the fact that they're doing it will put Doug on the bullseye for sure.
Yeah, and Shad Khan, we know, is not a patient owner. So they got a big trip coming up, 2 back-to-back. So they go to England week 6. They're playing the Bears over there, and then they're going to stay over in England. They're going to play the Patriots in week 7. And if either of those games go awry, I could see him not making it back from England. So it'd be crazy how Peterson at one time, 2017, they just celebrated Nick Foles a couple weeks ago in Philadelphia. And, it's just crazy how in only a couple of years that whole Super Bowl team and everything here in Philadelphia, it kind of is spiraling. And the people that have kind of moved to Jacksonville, it's kind of followed them. So we'll see if Peterson's able to weather the storm there, but definitely wanted to get your take on that. We're here on Lloyd Vance's Insider Football on 102.9 The Game and the Coastal Sports Network. I'm here with Javon Alford. We're talking about week 4. And I've been waiting to get you on because this team, they got a win a couple weeks ago. But I was saying to Rich, Javon was singing the praises of the Carolina Panthers. And the Panthers, now they got the red rifle, or Rich Quinones calls him the red water pistol. They had a revival with Andy Dalton, won a game last week. I just knew this week when they played his old team, the Bengals, that the Bengals were going to get right. The Bengals get it done, 34-24. They needed a win bad because they were 0-3 in their seasons on life support. We know only 6 teams since 1980 have made the playoffs after starting 0-3. Last one, 2018 Texans. So if anybody could do it, though, maybe the Bengals get hot now that they have Higgins back to do it. So good win for Cincinnati, and then talk about both sides of this game.
Yeah, no, great win for Cincinnati. It was what the doctor ordered for them, because after things went just haywire against the Commanders and their defense got shredded by the tune of 90% completion percentage for Jayden Daniels, they needed something. They needed something badly. And what's the best recipe for a team that's struggling? The Carolina Panthers defense, and they did what they were supposed to do against that defense. T. Higgins, you saw him get a little bit more involved in the passing game. 10 targets this week, 6 for 60, which was very good to see. Obviously, Jamar Chase was excellent. Joe Burrow did not get sacked, but that's expected because the Panthers do not have a pass rush at all. If you thought the Eagles' pass rush was bad, Carolina's pass rush is probably there or worse. They do not have a pass rush at all. So it was a great performance by them. Obviously, the running game too, getting on track with Chase Brown and Zach Moss. And I think a lot of people were wondering how that backfield would kind of shake out without Joe Mixon. Would somebody emerge as the lead back, or would it almost be kind of a running back by committee? And that committee worked out well. Both guys, 15 carries apiece. Chase Brown, 80 yards, 2 TDs. Zach Moss, 51 rushing yards. So a very good performance. Very good performance by the Bengals. Carolina, I mean, minus your defensive woes, to see the offense continue to start to pick up some consistency with Andy Dalton there, minus the interception. Chuba Hubbard continuing to dominate and run the ball there. And Deontay Johnson, the veteran, he's starting to string some good games together. Last week against the Raiders, now this week against the Bengals. So that offense is starting to find its identity. Granted, it took a veteran quarterback to kind of steer the boat in the right way, but the offense is going to be fine. Carolina defense really in trouble. I think they're getting Dane Jackson back, so that should help them. But obviously now losing Shaq Thompson to a torn Achilles is a huge bummer for that linebacker crew, because he didn't have much there as it. So it's going to be now Trevor Wallace, the rookie, to kind of step up and fill that void.
And with Carolina, I wanted to get your take. I talked with Kevin about it last week. Bryce Young, do we think that he needs a change of scenery? Does he have a chance to overcome this situation, or is he just going to be benched this season? We've seen so many of these quarterbacks come back. We've seen Darnold now this season, and even Jameis had a kind of revival for a little bit in other places. Do you think that Bryce Young is going to be able to come back and not be effective starter, but maybe a change of scenery be good for him?
I think I want things to work out for him in Carolina, because I think Dave Canales has proven that he can get guys going. We obviously saw with Baker last year, Geno the year before in Seattle. Like, he has the track record of getting these guys going, and for some reason for Bryce, it haven't clicked there. I would hope that Carolina doesn't give up on him too soon, because we just seen, like you said, so many instances of guys. Obviously, they get better with a change of scenery, but I think it's too early to write the book on him, given that, he went through and played an entire season of just craziness as a rookie, and he might have been a rookie that was better off suited sitting before actually playing, right? Actually digesting, learning the position from an Andy Dalton, and maybe that's what he needs, right? To sit and learn to understand what's happening on the field, how to kind of run this offense, because it's different probably of him going through it in real time, trying to figure it out. And remember, and I think people forget this too, I don't think the first team offense didn't play preseason until the last week of the preseason, which is kind of disturbing and puzzling, too. So the fact that, this is all kind of played out for Bryce, I still got hope for him. I think he'll get it together, hopefully with Carolina, and hopefully, things, will get better for him, because I think he still has a lot of talent. And, him learning from Dalton should help. They shouldn't trade him, and we'll see what happens for sure.
As we wait for Lloyd to come back once again. See, he made fun about Rich. Now look, it happens. It happens. But that's okay. By the way, a quick update here on the game Detroit. Seattle has just scored. And you had to see, you missed it, Javon, but it was an acrobatic tackle as he comes back once again. But it was a crazy acrobatic tackle where Seattle just kind of rolled and went forward. But here's Lloyd. And he's gone. And he's back.
What's up? Yeah. I guess that was me again. Oh,
all right. Take it away, Lloyd.
All right. So here on Lloyd Vance Insider Football, we're going to wrap up week 4, but also we got to start looking ahead to week 5 around the National Football League. So, Javon, before we close out week 4, we got to give our game balls and our lackeys. So my game ball winner was Fred Warner, who was just everywhere in a win over the Patriots. I mean, he had 7 tackles, he had 1 interception, was a pick 6, in a 30-13 win over the Patriots. Needed for the Niners. I think the Niners are going to start ramping up as long as they can get over injuries. But Purdy's looking so good. So, who did you have as a game ball winner?
Game ball winner. That's tough because there was a lot of great performances this week. Better scoring this week than it was last week in the NFL. But if I had to do game ball this week, I'm going to give it to the man down in Baltimore, Derrick Henry. Another excellent performance by him on the ground. 24 carries, 199 yards and a touchdown. I think everybody was worried the first couple of weeks of the season, wondering, is Derrick Henry washed? The Ravens can't figure out how to use a good running back. They only know how to use Gus Edwards and J.K. Dobbins. And Derrick Henry, these last 2 games, has turned it on against prime competition in the Cowboys and the Ravens and just straight up dominated. So I got to give the game ball to Derrick Henry. Just an excellent performance. And now with him figuring this running game out with Lamar Jackson, the Ravens could get on that road. I think a lot of us expected to happen from the jump this season.
Yeah, it's going to be fun to see if they can keep it rolling and challenge Kansas City, who's string together wins. But Kansas City, they're not doing it by blowing teams out. They're stacking W's. But if the Ravens, with that physicality and the way that they're playing, because nobody in the NFL is running the ball like them. A lot of these defenses are lighter. They're going to have a lot to say as we move towards the playoffs. So that was a good pick. Definitely 199. You would hope he would have got that 1 more yard. Then he would have had the record for the most 200-yard games as a running back position. But great win for the Ravens. And yeah, I agree that Derrick Henry's a good pick. I went with Fred Warner. And then on the other side, you give your game ball, but then we have Lloyd's lackey. And for the week, this is the person or the team that they were just garbage, as Nate would say. I'm going with the New York Jets head coach, Robert Saleh. He can accept it for everybody on his team. Very sloppy game. They lose 10-9 at home to the Denver Broncos. Bo Nix really didn't have to do a lot. Aaron Rodgers, you could see, he puts the towel over his head after they missed the game-winning field goal. The Jets had 13 penalties. Were only 4 of 17 third downs, 0-1 on 4, and Rodgers was 5 times. So very for the Jets, and I'll give it to Robert Saleh. And it's interesting because his record as a head coach is not good. 20-35. I think he's a coach on hot seat.
Definitely on the hot seat, and it's funny you said that because they were going to be my lackey too, especially that Jets offensive line. They had Aaron Rodgers.
Nice.
They had Aaron Rodgers sitting there like a lame duck, and you can tell Aaron Rodgers, that game in particular, looked like he was 40 years old. So that was a great choice. I was leaning towards the Jets for my lackey, but I hate to do this, but we got to give it to the Philadelphia Eagles. Philadelphia Eagles defense, Vic Fangio.
There it is. Let's do
it. They have to get the lackey this week. Just abhorrent play by the Eagles defense, spotting the Tampa Bay Buccaneers 21 points. You might as well have told the offense to drop the controller after giving up that 21 points because they just didn't They just didn't do them no justice whatsoever. The missed tackling, Darius Slay getting burnt for a touchdown, CJ Gardner-Johnson, I think every week so far has given up a touchdown inside the red zone or given up a receiving touchdown. Like, teams are legitimately going after him, not getting pass rush, not getting pressures. I think there's a stat that Nolan Smith and Bryce Huff have the same amount of pressures as Brandon Graham, and I think Brandon Graham has 8 by himself. Like, how was a 35-year-old, 36-year-old defensive lineman outplaying the younger guys on the defensive line? So I got to give it to the Eagles defense here. Vic Fangio is supposed to be the guy to kind of save this defense and get it in shape, but not looking good so far. And we still don't even know what's going on with Devin White too. So, like, Eagles defense, they get the lack.
Yeah, they got to get him out of the locker room. Yeah, it's crazy. We're only 4 weeks in, and we're talking about that Eagles defense. And Fangio was supposed to be the great elixir. Well, guess what? He's looking like Matt Patricia. So he needs to clean that thing up. So it's crazy. So here in the last minutes or so of Lloyd Vance Insider Football, we talked about our game ball. We talked about our lackey. We'll move on to week 5. We'll look at some of these games with Javon Offer. Tampa Bay Bucks 3-1 at Atlanta Falcons Thursday night. It's on Prime. Huge spot for Tampa Bay Falcons. The thing is, Kirk Cousins, we know he's typically, he beat the Eagles in prime time, but this is another opportunity for him to step forward. I think I'm leaning towards the Bucks though in this one.
Yeah, I think I'm going to lean towards the Bucks too. The Falcons have gotten a couple of last-second late victory wins, which is good, but you can't win every week like that. I granted the Falcons defense is really solid. Matt Judon, Grady Jarrett, Bates and AJ Terrell in that secondary, but I just like the way that the Bucks are playing physical football, and I think they're going to try to do the same thing. I think they're going to try to win up in the offensive line, defensive line, win in the trenches, and the spread says it's going to be a close one. I think it's going to probably be a close one because the Thursday night games this season have just been very weird. They haven't been the most exciting, the most explosive. But I think the Bucks, I agree with you. I think the Bucks should be able to get the job done. I believe in Baker Mayfield in this Bucks offense more than I believe in what Kirk Cousins and what this Falcons offense has done this year.
There we go. And then the next one's over the pond. This is fun. I always like this. I wake up early Sunday. You get your breakfast, and you're able to watch the game. So the Jets are playing the Vikings over in England.
If it's me, I'm going to take the Jets. Yeah, I'm gonna take the Vikings.
Yeah, I think the Jets just the heartbreaking way lost on that missed field goal, and you see Aaron already getting angry and starting his stuff. I think the Vikings are going to take it to him.
Yeah, and we just saw what that Broncos defense just did to that offensive line, the Jets. What can we expect? What Brian Flores with his pieces are going to be able to do to that Jets offense? So, if Sam Darnold, if he gets protection, I mean, we're going to have a great matchup between Justin Jefferson and Sauce Gardner. Now, that's going to be a fun matchup to watch those two guys go at it. But I think the Vikings are the better team on both sides of the football in this one.
Yeah, we'll see if Darnold can keep it going. Some people are saying MVP with his name, which I can't believe we're saying at this point. But, you got to put him in that mix the way he's playing right now. We'll keep it rolling here on Lloyd Vance Insider Football, closing the day with looking at some of the Week 5 games. You have the Buffalo Bills, who they thought they were the real deal, but they kind of got pushed around by the Ravens. They're going to Houston. Been back and forth on this one. I'm going to go with the Houston Texans because I just think the Buffalo Bills, they're very beat up defensively, especially in their secondary. I think that the Texans and all the weapons they have can exploit that.
Yeah, I think so too. And I think the Bills not also having that solidified number 1 wide receiver, I think that will kind of show itself in this game. I think we will probably have Stephon Diggs' revenge game in this one. He might go nuclear against his former team. It will be interesting to see if Joe Mixon comes back, because if Joe Mixon comes back, I think this change. Obviously, we know it changes this Texans offense just completely. Like Cam Akers, I think has done a solid job in relief, and we saw what Derrick Henry was able to do against this Bills defense. But if you can get a healthy Joe Mixon back in the mix, what he's able to do as a runner and a passer to go with Stroud and these weapons, it could be. Josh is going to do his thing to keep him in it, but I think CJ and company, like you said, I think they pull away and get the win.
Yeah. One more, we'll sneak that in. The Saints and Kansas City, they're going to be able to keep winning ugly. I say Mahomes will keep it going, and the Saints had all those points the first 2 weeks, but do you think that Patrick Mahomes will be able to win one more week next Monday night? They take on the Saints in KC.
I think they will. I don't think the offense is going to obviously get off, and I think that's probably going to be a huge struggle for them without Rashee Rice coming into this one, because now you're going to have Marshawn Lattimore against probably Kelsey or Xavier Worthy, which is going to be just exciting because of Worthy's just blistering speed. This game is going to be won by defense. I think Steve Spagnuolo is going to turn up the heat on Derek Carr and kind of almost probably take the blueprint of what the Eagles are doing. You know, see if that front four with Chris Jones and Carl Loftus can get pressure on Carr and allow his secondary and his linebackers to do what they do against this Saints offense. So 5 is a little high right now for the number. I'll be interested to see if it moves a point in either way. But right now, I like the Chiefs, but I think it won't be a clean win. I think they'll just sneak by, maybe by 6-7 points.
Yeah, you wonder, are they going to keep doing this? You know, I know they have that championship DNA, but I just don't know. That injury is going to be huge for them.
Yes, it
Losing
is.
Rice. Are they going to? Yeah, it's going to be huge. Angel, how are we looking? Time. Left. All right. All right. Well, another great week here on Lloyd Vance's Insider Football. On what time you have? Do we have time? Angel, we get time to look at one more game? All right. Angel says we have time to look at another game, so we'll keep going here on Lloyd Vance Insider Football. Javon, let me go one before we get out of here. Both teams playing tonight, so I wanted to get your take on them. Seattle Seahawks is 3-0. What are you thinking about that? Do you think they're going to be able to beat the Giants next week?
Yes, they should be. I think Mike McDonald is going to have a defensive clinic against Daniel Jones in that offense. I think he'll obviously they're going and seeing the explosive Lions offense, and they won't be seeing the explosive Giants offense. So I think they'll be able to handle the business and come away with a nice victory at home against them Giants. Unless Greg Joseph goes for 7 field goals, but I don't see that
happening. All right. Another great week here at Lloyd Vance's Insider Football on 102.9 The Game, the Close Sports Network. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. Javon Alford. We worked through our technical difficulties. We'll get it ready for next week. Talk to you next week.